The offensive line. The offensive line is still a massive issue. And Cole Strange getting benched for the second week in a row. First was Isaiah Wynn. Now he's not even starting. And look, Yadni could just held his own today. We'll have to look at the tape, but Cole, they have no depth at guard, none. Like, I don't think Isaiah Wynn is an NFL guard. He struggled in there. He wasn't as bad as Strange, but he struggled. They can't get five guys on the field. They just cannot do it. And you're not going to win games. Mac Jones isn't going to figure things out. The passing game isn't going to figure things out. The running game's not going to be sustainable if you can't block up front, plain and simple. So they got 2 weeks here. I don't know exactly what they do at this point because it feels like they've pressed every button, but they have to get something figured. And getting David Andrews back will help, certainly. But it's also concerning when your first-round pick can't play without a team captain next to him.
Right.
So the whole Cole Strange thing and Isaiah Wynn and right tackle and left guard, like it's starting to trend towards the it is what it is category. And that's not to say it is what it is as an excuse. That's saying it is what it is as in, well, they're just going to have to work around it because they can't fix it. And those are really tough holes to work around.
Yeah. My question mark originally, kind of just looking at my notes here, it was the fact that can the Patriots fix this offense? But that was sort of my main takeaway, was that the offense seems pretty much broken. So I'm going to go to Jake Bailey because I don't know what's going on with Jake Bailey. We need a wellness check on that guy, though. I don't know if it's the blocking up front. I don't know. One of the things was Cardona looked like he had a bad snap at one point, which that was him on another shank. So maybe that wasn't entirely his fault, but the punt operation itself is a disaster, and luckily it hasn't came and bit them in the ass yet. And it's like, okay, at least it happened against the Colts, or at least it happened against the Jets where they kind of had that game in hand at that point. But if there comes a time where they legitimately need Bailey to flip the field like they always had and he can't do it now, that's a problem for a guy who was an All-Pro before. And just, I don't know if it's the yips. I don't know if it's still an injury. I don't know what it could be, but it's a big question mark, and they need to get it fixed ASAP. Like you said before, and like what we talked about with the play of the game, or when we alluded to it, talking about the play of the game, you bring in a guy like Michael Velarde. Is it to kind of mimic Matt Hawk, or is it to give Bailey some competition? Because something's got to be done there, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's getting concerning, especially after they gave him that contract. I know I get, because I talk a lot about punting, I get a ton of questions about it. It's not easily identifiable. You know, I've talked to some, not people with the Patriots about it. Like, this isn't like a sourced thing, but it's akin to a jump shot or a punting. It's kind of like a jump shot or like pitchers or whatever. And what can happen sometimes with the athletes is when you have an injury, you overcompensate in terms of your mechanics, whatever they may be.
Yep. And
then when you get healthy, you no longer need that overcompensation. So you have to go back to your old mechanic, and sometimes guys have trouble finding it. And then it's, you tweak this, and then you tweak that, and then you tweak another thing. And suddenly you're so far from where you were that you can't find your way back. Right. So that would be my guess as to where he's at right now. He had a punt all of last year with an injury. He's trying to readjust to punting without an injury, and he just can't find his motion. Like Cam McCord talked to us last week, like he's not striking the ball in the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
That to me would be something about either the way he's dropping the ball or the way he's bringing his foot up. I know people are going to say, dropping the ball and bringing your foot up, that's punting. Like, it's a little more nuanced than that.
It is. You see it in their warm-ups. When Bailey warms up, he's walking around just dropping and looking at his foot all day. It's a science. There's a science behind it.
I just think there's something in his mechanic that at some point along the line was altered, and he's trying to go back to it, and he can't find his original swing. It's sort of like golf, right? This happens with golfers a lot. Tiger went through this where he hurt his back. He had to change his swing to compensate for his back. And then when his back was healthy, the swing he'd been doing for the last however long it was no good. So he had to go back and find his original swing. And that's a process. Sometimes you can get guys get right back to it, and it's not an issue. Sometimes it takes some time. Sometimes guys never get back to it. So I think with Jake Bailey, he's clearly still in that process. The question is, Do they believe he's close to snapping out of it? And however far away he is, if they have a feel on it, are they willing to give him that much time? And that's we have no way of knowing. That's an internal matter. It's not something like, oh, we've seen this or we've seen that. We're just not going to know until they make a decision. But that is where I would imagine it's at right now.
Yeah. It's a problem that needs a solution soon, because you have, looking ahead past the bye, you have a couple tough opponents where it's not going to be a cakewalk like this week was, and that might come back to bite you if you can't flip the field and you give the team the ball on your side of the field once again.
I mean, you're also going to get late in the year, and there's going to be, more wind, and it's going to be wet, and like it's not going to. Today was, I don't want to say it was an easy day to kick because it was pretty windy, but by New England standards, early November 6th, today was not the worst kicking day. Like, there's going to be worse days than there were today.
Yeah, agreed. Speaking of the punt operation as a whole, special teams, I guess, as a whole, let's get into some, not so much your main takeaway, but your side take, your underrated take of the game. Mine is Marcus Jones is incredibly valuable to this team without even having to play defense as a 4th-round pick. It's like, if you decided let's draft a punt returner, kick returner with a 4th-round pick, this is who you would want to be. It's Marcus Jones, because he came in on this team instantly and is able to just be a huge part of the, like I said, the punt return, kick return operation, get you the yardage and kind of flip the field you need it when you need it. He knows how to read a fair catch when he has to, right? He knows exactly how to read the blocking scheme when they block it up for him correctly. He doesn't make many mistakes at all. You don't see him go over his head and then bounce to the 1-yard line. He knows how to read the punt game, and it's, like I said, without him even having to play defense, he's incredibly valuable for a 4th-round rookie.
Yeah, mine is, I actually think they missed Devontae Parker today. They didn't play well offensively in the red zone, and it took them 2 plays to score from the 2 on the first drive. They couldn't get in on the 3 on the second drive. They got down there. You'd like to think that's where Devontae Parker comes in big. You're going to throw him fades in the back corner. They haven't done that yet this year, but they just look so lost without that as an option. I'd like to think it's something they want to go back to. They got to figure it out on the goal line, because teams are they're going to pack the A gap for Ramondre, because that's kind of their only play right now. I know Mac had that throw out in the flat, but if I'm defending the Patriots in the red zone, I'm just keying in on Ramondre Stevenson. Not even in the red zone. I mean, overall, I'm just keying in on Ramondre Stevenson and making you beat me with somebody else. So I guess it kind of goes back to the take I had before of just they've got to find secondary offense. They don't have it right now. Jacoby, I know, has been at times. He's had a couple big weeks, but the Colts did a good job taking him away today. And they need, I would say he's been him and Ramondre Stevenson have been the primary offense. I think last week the two of them combined for 80% of the touches or something. Whether it's Kendrick Bourne, who had a rough day, whether it's Tyquan Thornton, whether it's Nelson Aguilar, whether it's one of these other backs, whether it's the tight ends, maybe they're getting Hunter Henry going a little bit. They have to find.
Yeah, Henry was okay today.
I think it was their leading receiver today, actually. But
he was.
It hasn't been consistent. They need to find consistent secondary offensive production.
Yeah, it's tough. They also need
somebody says they have to find an offense, period. The secondary production is what's going to get them there, because when they start proving that some of these guys who can at least be somewhat of a threat, whether it's Henry, whether it's Jonu, whether it's Kendrick Bourne, whether it's Tyquan, once they start proving that these are guys you actually have to pay a little bit of attention to, it's going to open things back up for Ramondre Stevenson, Jacoby Myers, and those guys can start making plays. So it's all connected. It's not as simple as snapping the fingers and suddenly the offense is better, right? When you say, the offense needs to be better, it's not just, okay, be better. How do they do that? Secondary production is the two big things. Secondary production is a big part of it, and they need to start taking a profit. They need to start. There still seems to be this hesitance towards throwing the ball short of the sticks, not on third down, just overall. I mean, I think they averaged 1.8 yards per play on first and second down because they had so many incompletions. They need to start running setup plays. And that's where the secondary offensive options come in. Those are the guys who are going to get you those setup plays and create opportunities for your big playmakers down the field. So when you say the offense needs to get better, that's what that means. That's how they're going to do it. It's not the offense needs to be better, and like all of a sudden that the 400 yards a game. There's an actual process that goes into it. And I think those are two huge parts of that process.
I mean, the play calling, too, still has to greatly improve. Like, some of it, again, I alluded to, I mean, it was kind of not a joke, but it was kind of hey, they actually showed something with the Jacoby Myers QB sneak, right? But
yeah, they
need to be more dynamic. And they, like, when they were on the goal line and they ran run to Ramondre shotgun, run to Ramondre in the shotgun, and then 5 wide pass and Mac ends up getting sacked or runs into the defender on the slide. It's like, that was the most predictable offense you could have ever ran right there. And yeah, they need to get their secondary scoring revamped like they did last year, because Hunter Henry was a guy who was a red zone threat last season. I remember in the Browns game last year, I was actually at the game. I was sitting like in the end zone when they ran like a seam tight pass, pop pass to Hunter Henry in the end zone, and they haven't ran like, it seems like anything like that this season to Henry. I mean, they used to run like these flag routes to Henry in the end zone, or I can't remember, something else we called it, but it's like they're not scheming anybody up in the red zone, and they're just kind of, like you said, they're maybe almost, when they get in the red zone, they're like taking a profit to a fault, because they're just running and waiting it out and just letting themselves get 3 instead of getting more aggressive and trying to actually get in the end zone.
Yeah, to me, that's just, it's not taking a profit. It's just being overly conservative.
Yeah, fair. That's kind of what I was getting at. Just, run it, whatever, you got it. But,
right.
So yeah, that's that. Looking ahead, Patriots are on a bye week next week before they welcome the Jets to Gillette. I guess kind of biggest question mark kind of ties into this, but they need to take these 2 weeks, and they need to really get healthy along the offensive line. David Andrews there will be a huge help. That's priority A, and then priority B is just getting in the film room for like literally 2 weeks straight, taking what works on offense and sticking it in the playbook, and taking what doesn't work on offense and throwing it in the trash, and finding out ways to make plays and get themselves in better position to score touchdowns and not field goals on offense. I think that's what they have to do looking ahead in these next 2 weeks.
Well, I think even beyond that, the bye week comes kind of loaded this year. Normally you head into the bye and it's like, all right, week off, see you in 2 weeks. After what happened last year, right, losing 5 of 6 after the bye with the lone win against a bad Jaguars team, there is going to be a lot of noise the next 2 weeks externally about what happened last year. Why did they struggle at the end? How do you avoid that happening again? What are you doing to make sure that doesn't happen again? They can't let that happen again. They can't. I mean, if they do, they're not going to make the playoffs. They have not afforded themselves the same start they did last year. The AFC is much tighter than it was last year. That was really something what happened coming out of the bye. I mean, it was night and day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Matthew Judon didn't have a single sack. Max starts turning the ball over left and right. It was bad. It was really bad. It is just not good football. It's going to be a question these next 2 weeks. What happened last year, and is it going to happen again? So they've got to forget, everything you said. They got to look at the offense and all of that and get healthy. But they've just got to they've got to kind of look themselves in the mirror and a lot of guys talked about this game against the Colts as a bit of a redemption. They lost to the Colts coming out of the bye last year. It was a bad loss. It kicked off that whole thing. And from what it sounded like after the game today, talking to players, that was talked about this week. This was very personal, this game today. Yep. They almost need to take that same approach to the bye week. They almost need to treat this like the bye. And I'm kind of saying this tongue in cheek. They almost need to treat the bye week like it was an opponent. The Colts kicked their ass last year. They took it personally. They came out today and they took care of business. The bye week was, whether it's true or not, externally it looks like the bye week really tripped them up last year. Mm-hmm. That's something that I would think they're going to hear about a lot they're going to hear about it externally. How much they hear about it internally, who knows? But that's something that's going to come up the next couple of weeks.
Well, even after the game, earlier in this week, John Jones said we're not even allowed to talk about the bye week. And that was more so not to...
That was about not overlooking the Colts.
That was not overlooking the Colts. But after the game today, when asked about the bye week, Mac Jones said, well, yeah, we have this and we have the bye week coming up, or whatever you want to call it. So, like, he doesn't even want to call it a bye week. And that's sort of what they have to do in between those walls, and not call it a bye week, and call it another prep week, call it a reset week. But if you, like you said, take it as 2 weeks off and then back to the grindstone the next, like, that's not going to cut it. They need to stay in those walls, and they need to stay, locked in and keep this train moving, because again, it's ugly. Two ugly wins from the offense anyway, but a win's a win, and they're hard to come by in this league. So Patriots beat the Colts 26-3. They are cemented right outside of the playoff hunt right now. I think they're the 8th seed as it currently sits. I know there's an AFC game going on tonight, but I mean, they're there.
They're both 5-2. Neither of those teams are going to fall below the Patriots.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm going to get into it more on CLNSmedia.com this week. Send out a nice Election Day State of the Patriots address, taking a look at kind of where they stand at the bye and getting more in depth on it. But I mean, they're right there. They can continue to compete, and I've said it a million times, but in an AFC that was supposed to be dominant and is not nearly as good as it was kind of expected to be, they're right there in the mix. So